Hi, how are you today? It's me, it's El the Devil. Welcome to what I believe is the LOL podcast, episode 2. I think that's what we're sticking with in terms of name. I have been thinking about doing this for a while, where I just kind of sit down and talk about things that are on my mind, that are going on, because, I think about stuff a lot. I think about things a lot, and I like to talk, but sometimes, as good as I am at talking, I don't do it when I'm supposed to. And so there's a lot of times where I'll be with friends, and they tell me about their woes, and then it's my turn, and I'm like, everything's perfect, I'm fine, I'm perfect, life is perfect. But good doesn't equal perfect, and two things can be true at once. This isn't going to be a sad fest either. I've got other things on my mind. I've got other things that I'd like to air the fuck out. And so I made a list in my phone about some things that I want to discuss. My mind is like cooking. We're thinking, we're processing. And so why not just do it here? And in the future, I'd like to have more, I do have one episode on the back burner with my other parent that I'm waiting to upload until, I'm not sure when. Maybe for his birthday, I'm not sure. But until then, and while we're doing the Diary of Mr. Bitches, why don't we have more of my voice? Because I know you probably can't get enough of my voice. I can't get enough of my voice. I'm obsessed with myself. I love listening to myself. And so I think this will be a good way to listen to myself, even more than I already do. So I don't know where to go from here. Let's go look at the list. Also, I'm really sorry about the air conditioning in the background. I have my phone here because I'm using it as my audio device. I would be using my headphones. It would be equal parts as ghetto. Maybe it would sound a little bit better, but I'm not a fucking sound technician. This is as good as it's going to get. And so I actually wrote like a thought, but we're gonna bring that up later. I wrote it yesterday. But underneath that, I wanted to talk about a couple things that are going on right now. And it's that I feel stagnant in life, especially when it comes to a job and working. I usually go through this thing where after being at a job for like a year, I'll just be like, that's enough of this. Or what's next? What are we truly doing with our lives? And so wouldn't you know, I just applied to school. I'm turning 27 in a month, by the way, and I just now applied to school so that I can go back and continue my journey of education to get the job that I so desire. And I'll try to not put too many details here, I guess, but, the job that I desire is probably not going to be an easy one. Every job is hard. Every job comes with its issues, but it just seems like an ideal one for me. And so I want to probably be an art teacher of the sorts. Growing up, I've been making comics and drawing for a long time, but I've been making comics since I was 13, 14 years old. And I always said that if I couldn't be a famous comic book artist, I would be an art teacher. This thought came in high school because high school was probably one of the worst times of my life. I went through a lot. Things were terrible. First relationship, abusive relationship, a lot of confusion, mental illness. I'm sure that the hormones didn't help. I'm sure the abusive relationship didn't help. And so overall instability. But I have these very vivid memories of me coming into school and my art teacher or my music teacher knowing that something was wrong with me and doing whatever they could to create a safe space for me, if you will, whether that was through means of talking about what was going on with me or just giving me a snack because I hadn't eaten in a very long time, which was one of the many ways that I used to torture myself in these times of distress. And so when I was going through that time in high school, I don't think anything else would have gotten me through other than the teachers who were there for me, who made it an easier experience and who saw me through my struggles and who pushed me to create and continue creating and who wanted me to flourish, that's what got me through the terrible experience that was high school. And so I always said that if there was ever a chance that another kid was in a position that I was in, I'd want nothing more than to be able to help them and help them feel seen and help them feel like they could go to someone or be themselves or express themselves through the intensity of their artwork. Because that was another thing. I was trifling. I was drawing mad crazy shit. In high school, I made this comic, which I want to revamp. I've been working on getting all of my comics uploaded on Kindle Direct Publishing because they're just collecting dust. And how many motherfuckers do you know can sit here and say, yeah, I've written several comics before the age of 30. I've made several of my own comics. Not a lot, maybe some. Maybe there's a lot. There's a lot of people on this planet. But I'm one of those people. And so I want to get my shit out there. Working on publishing these things. Anyways, in high school, I wrote this one comic about incest. Now, it's not a celebration of incest. It's more like a really traumatic story about two siblings who've experienced things. And shit just got broke in the interim, I suppose. And this is the shit that I was writing about when I was 15 or 16 years old. Because whatever whirlwind tornado was going on in my mind, my art was the direct manifestation of whatever was eating away at me. And still is till this day. Still fucking is. Who's Mr. Bitches? If you know, bitch, you fucking know. Me, bitch. He's a self-insert. And so, yeah, I'm lucky that I had teachers who I could show this fucking crazy shit or tell them about it in the very least and then be like, this is wild, but I see you and I see that there are a lot of problems here that you probably need to sort through in therapy when you grow up. So yeah, art teacher, that would be cool. I don't know, past that, college, high school, I don't know. I just know I want to do it because I'm passionate about that. In my current job, I'm also helping the community and younger people in a way that I didn't know I was so passionate about. But I guess when I think about growing up, being a kid, these are vital stages where a lot of awful things happen. A lot of good things happen too. But if you're one of the unlucky ones, which is most of us, it will happen and it will follow you for the rest of your life. These are such important moments where we have to be there to accompany these little lives who have no idea what's going on, who haven't been on this planet very long, who are lost, and rely on us to learn about the world and learn about themselves. I guess that's a really good way to put it. I don't really be thinking about my passion that comes with working with kids, but that's kind of been my mindset. And so I don't want to stop it, but I don't really like or how should I say, I don't like the path that I'm going down in the sense of it can't just be this for the rest of my life. I want to be able to help people, yes, but I also want to be able to consider my own mental illness, and I want to be comfortable in a lot more ways, and I want to make more money, and I'm not going to be able to do that sitting around. I'm going to have to go back to school one way or another, whether it was going to be an art teacher or to be a fucking engineer. Not something I could ever do. I'm really not the sharpest tool in the shed, and I'm really scared for what that math class is going to look like. There might be some cheating. There might be some guessing. There might be some pleading and begging, because it wouldn't be my first time going to college. I went to Full Sail University. Anybody who is thinking about going, don't go, because it is not a regionally accredited school. It's only nationally accredited, and so it'll fuck your whole shit up. And my college credits are basically the equivalent of Chuck E. Cheese tokens anywhere but the state of Florida. And when I went through that math class, I failed it 2 times. And on the 3rd time, I went to that desk and I said to that teacher, I'm stupid and you need to help me. And she said, you're not stupid and I'm going to help you. Boom. Another example of a teacher coming in and saving my life. And what's fucked up is because it was a math class, I don't even remember that woman's name. But wherever she's at, I wish her love and wealth, because I tell this story a lot about how I came to her desk on my hands and my knees begging for fucking help because I'm not good at math. So there's like a lot of fear that comes with that. They didn't give me the option to put fucking like for the spring. They just said the fall. And I'm not ready. We're about to hit August. But I guess if the financial aid figures itself out before then, like whatever, I'll start going to school. And everybody's going to have to deal with it and deal with me being a college freshman at the ripe age of 26. I'm not getting any younger. That's another thing. I'm not getting any younger. Am I going to keep waiting to go back to school? I'm uncomfortable where I am right now. And so I'm going to push myself to further discomfort, which is going to school, while being somebody who works several jobs and has passions on the side. I'm going to bite the bullet and do it. And, you know, something interesting that I wrote in these notes over here, if I could pull it up for you. I guess I'll share it now. It was supposed to be for later, but I said I'm in the thick of it right now, currently. And this is not even the thickest it's been, because we've had worse times, nor is it the thickest that it's going to get. Because part of the reason that I've been putting school off is because I'm not good at school. I think I graduated high school with a 2.4 GPA. And unfortunately, it's not because I'm a non-intelligent person. I'm intelligent in a lot of ways that have nothing to do with books and mathematics and reading things and history. So I'm just not excited, but we're going to have to get a little down and dirty if we want to move forward. You know, I just farted. Let me know if you heard it in the comments down below. I just had some shrimp and potatoes. Have a hard time eating these days. I just really wish I could photosynthesize like a plant. Feels like I'm developing some sort of eating disorder. Again, at the ripe age of 26. Because I have no desire to eat most of the time. And the only real desire is that my stomach is like, please feed me. It's been hours. Please, we hunger. And so I guess that ends that spiel about El the Devil goes back to school. El the Devil does college. At least I'll be locked in. And let's segue into that next topic. I'll be locked in because I'll be sober. And for a fun fact, I was an alcoholic for 5 years. And even before I was an alcoholic, I've always been addicted to something. Should we start at the beginning? Should we get that crazy? All right, trigger warning. We're going to get that crazy. You know, I got tested for autism twice in high school. I failed my tests with flying colors, so didn't get the autism. But my mom always thought that there were several things that kind of were telltale signs of what might be autism. Because she's been around autistic people for all of her life. And so I have a bad habit of smelling things. If you hand me something, the chances of me smelling it are going to be a solid 8 out of 10. I'm always smelling my hands, which might not be good considering where they have been in certain times. I'm just being honest. And also I get like fixated and obsessed with things. And so what was the point in that? Something else that I don't think my mom knew was that I was always engaging in the self-injurious behavior. I was always SIBing. When I was younger, that was my big thing because I didn't know that I could do drugs or alcohol. I didn't know that I could smoke cigarettes or drink the marijuanas. So I hurt myself a lot. When I was really, really, really young, I would bang my head against walls or punch myself in the head. And then getting older, you know, I was emo, you know, I was in my emo phase, listening to I'm Not Okay by those people. My Chemical Paramore. I'm just kidding. It was a bad joke. It's kind of a bad joke. My Chemical Romance, Paramore, whatever fucking bullshit. And so I was engaging in the self-injurious behavior in a worse way. I also threw myself down the stairs a couple times, was still banging my head against walls and punching myself in the throat or whatever. And so yeah, now I got older. And then I went to college. And then I had a roommate who was older than me, who could go buy vodka. And then I started smoking weed. I got introduced to the devil's lettuce. And that was a pretty big game changer. I will argue that before alcohol, weed was probably my first love. I think before weed, it was actually Benadryl. There was like a solid month where before I got my hands on these things, I was using Benadryl. Because I was like, oh, I suffer from allergies. And I was like, try Benadryl. And I did in the middle of class. And I was like, I feel funny and I kind of like it. And so I would take mad Benadryl. And that was a thing that I was doing for a while. I think the most I ever did was 9. And thank God I didn't go over that, because since then I've seen a lot of videos on DPH and what it could do to your fucking brain and how easily you could die off of that shit or just create a whirlwind of problems for your body. And so it went on to weed, and I was a huge pothead. I liked weed a lot. Was started off as like an every day at the end of the night kind of thing, turned into, we're going to buy a fucking ounce, I think. What's the one that was $80 in 2017? The economy's fucked. I would just buy a bunch of weed, and then before class I would smoke, and I was pretty functioning. So before class I would smoke, then I would get to class high as hell, and then they would dismiss us for break, and then me and my classmates would go to my house and hotbox my closet, and then come right back to class and get back on the saddle. And for a while it was that, but I was drinking too, because we would go out and we would drink. I wasn't 21 at the time, so I would have friends who would buy drinks for me or would pregame or whatever, but it wasn't as accessible, so it wasn't as big of a thing for me as weed was, because my weed dealer, that was my boy. He was a pretty cool guy. And so, it was weed for a while, and then I graduated, and then I turned 21. And then I want to say that ever since turning 21, I've been an alcoholic. And so that was, 5 years, 21 to 26. Straight up alcoholic. I had to stop smoking weed at some point because I had a bad acid trip. And so every time I smoke weed, I feel like I'm tripping acid. So I stood away from that, but then that built the reliance and the love for alcohol that I had so much more than it needed to get built. And then COVID hit, and it was socially acceptable to start drinking at 12 in the afternoon and just keep that shit up. And I just never stopped. I never stopped. I kept going. And I think one of the biggest struggles that I had with alcohol was the fact that I was a very happy drunk. I didn't get violent like some other people that I've seen or experienced. Never got violent. I was either really happy or sad and brooding in my sadness. But that kind of muddled things, because it's like, well, if I'm not violent, then it's okay and I can keep drinking. Like, I'm not doing any harm to anybody but myself, and I'm okay with hurting myself, obviously. As we could see thus far in the video, if there's one thing I've always been okay with, it's been me taking the brunt of whatever damage that I'm inhaling from the outside world. Never cared to put myself through the antics. It was, if I was hurting other people was when it became an issue. And so, not to get too ahead, but even during COVID, I did a bunch of drugs because that was all we had to do. So I learned my brutal lesson in the middle of COVID. We're talking 30-hour binges on certain things, staying awake for a really not good amount of time and not eating in that whole time, and then coming down and having the shakes and not really sure if what was going to happen or if you needed to go to the hospital to kind of cope with the crash out that was occurring, that your body was coming to terms with. And so that was pretty nuts, and then my fair share of my hoorahs with psychedelics, which they say is not addictive, which I could see. But, so real quick before we keep going about the alcoholism, it's something that ties into what I want to talk about, was that I was in active addiction. I didn't really know it. I just thought it's COVID and we're all drinking and the world is fucking ending. There was this episode of Midnight Gospel. I think it's the first episode of that little guy with like the shotgun. He's the president. He's just like me for real. But in that episode, they're talking about how there's no such thing as good or bad drugs. It's just more so the experience that you have with these very powerful and intense substances. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But back to my addiction, I have suffered with that. I've had the sickness, whatever you want to call it. And I got sober. I made 4 months clean of drinking and any other drug, I guess, on the 14th, which is a nice pat on the back there. Because shit went awry. It took one time for me to fuck up and one time for me to hurt somebody really bad, to which I realized we got to do something. And I didn't want to stop drinking. My therapist was like, we got an outpatient rehab program if you're interested in that. And I said, I'll do it because I never tried anything before. You know, all 5 years of drinking, I've never tried to stop. So I'll do it, but I don't want to stop drinking. And my plan was to go into outpatient rehab and to not stop drinking. And when I got that call and they were like, okay, so it's the intensive therapy 3 days out of the week for 3 hours, I believe. Yeah, it was 3 hours. And they said, and the drug test once a week. And I said, drug tests? I was supposed to be drinking the entire time that I was attending this. What do you mean drug test? This puts a real wrench in my plans. This puts a real damper on what I had planned, which was to go through the program, sure, but to keep drinking. And so I wasn't really excited about that, but I said, fine. And I remember even that therapist said, oh, well, you know, depending on what your addiction looks like, it's not like we're going to tell you to quit right away cold turkey. Like, there are ways that we can help you with this, medicated, wean you off of this and help you and whatnot. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep damn drinking as long as I fucking can while I'm attending this fucking thing, right? That's how I went into IOP. And then when I went into IOP, there was a point where I said, hey, even if I stop drinking, it's just a little break and we'll get right back on the saddle. Hopefully this outpatient rehab shit is over by the time summer comes around, because you know I'm about to be running these streets. That was what I was planning on when I went into outpatient rehab. I said, this is just a break. And so now time has passed. And it's been 4 months of sobriety, and I don't intend on drinking anytime soon, because I've learned a lot in that time about addiction, about trauma, all those fun buzzwords that we're so fucking sick and tired of hearing about. But, you know, I learned a lot about ADHD, which I do have, I believe. I mean, I've had several screenings, but not by neurologists. I think only by therapists and whatnot. And, yeah, dude. So, sobriety. What's it looking like? I've been struggling a little, not with cravings necessarily, but with like the why of it all. And so my thought process has been like, you know, being sober is not easy. I'm 26 years old and everybody my age is drinking right now. I mean, everybody all the time is drinking, but if you're a young person, you know. If you're a sober young person, for one reason or another, you know how hard this is and how isolating it feels sometimes. And I've been feeling isolated because I'm not in IOP anymore. And I've been neglecting my group therapy sessions. And so I've been thinking that I should go to some AA meetings so that I can remind myself that I'm not alone. Even if all the people around me my age are drinking, which is totally fine and totally okay. Because, again, I have a sickness and they don't. There's a difference between, you know, what's going on with me and what's going on with them. But, you know, so that I can continue to understand myself and continue to remember that I'm not alone in this mess, I want to go to meetings, maybe meetings with younger people, because this is hard and this is isolating. And so something else I wanted to talk about, the hard aspect, and we'll get back to the why in a bit, is like, I've been watching this guy on YouTube, and I'll give y'all his YouTube. I'll put the handle down below in the description. I got into him because he posted a video on soft white underbelly, and this guy, his name is Brian. So sweet. And he is a recovering opioid addict, I believe. And he was talking about Soft White Underbelly and how he used to support them, but he doesn't anymore. And he wants to talk about the implications of why they're like why Mark Laita is like really problematic in what he does, which I agree. I've been on that tip. Shout out BJ Investigates. Fuck Soft White Underbelly. Anyways, before we get off topic, that's how I got introduced to this guy. And he posted a video the other day that was talking about how we should be handling the youth when it comes to addiction. And so it was a beautiful video. He talked about a lot of beautiful things, but avoiding all that, because I want to keep this as streamlined as possible, there were several moments in the video where he talks about substances. And he doesn't talk about substances the way that you might think about substances and drugs, which is, it's bad for you. Ooh, it's so spooky, it's so bad. You shouldn't do it. We all know that, sis. We've been new. And that's very one-dimensional. There's a lot of things that are bad for you at the end of the day, and we'll still do it anyways. We're humans. The way that this guy describes these drugs is not bad. They're amazing. They're great. They are fucking incredible. They chemically produce some of the most pleasurable feelings that a human can experience. And that's what's the fuck of it all. That's why it becomes so easy to fall into addiction. And first of all, that description of drugs and alcohol is something that it helps me give myself a little bit more compassion for why I was an addict, why I have been an addict this entire time, even when it comes to the self-injurious behavior. Like, at the end of the day, we are uncomfortable humans. Like, we are uncomfortable in our fucking skin, whether that be because of trauma or because of chemical imbalances in our brain. In my case, I spent a lot of time uncomfortable in my own skin. So what do you do when you're uncomfortable in your own skin or in your own mind? You take the mind-altering substance, and it feels fucking great. Whatever you find your drug of choice to be, that's why you take it. Because you feel like fucking shit. You feel like you don't belong. And once you take that hit, once you take that sip, once you do that bump, or that line, you feel fucking incredible. And when I was watching this video, it was a brutal reminder again of why I fell into that. And I thought back, I was like reminiscing on my days of drinking. And it's like, there really was nothing that felt better than like taking that first shot of the night and then getting ready to take 5 more for the rest of the night. See where the bars took me. Or going to the liquor store to buy those little nips of vodka. And taking those, bringing them home. And that was my limit for the night. Oh, 3 shots. I'm a functioning alcoholic. 3 shots. There was no better feeling than like taking those 3 shots and just fucking grinding out on Fallout New Vegas. Or taking those 3 shots and getting under my bed and whacking off. Or watching a documentary. It just felt so good. And I realized through this guy's video that, yeah, there's been a lot of discomfort in my own fucking skin. And a lot of just chaos. You know, it's been years of instability and uncertainty and chaos. And something that my therapist told me, my last therapist, was the truth and the fact of the matter is that alcohol worked for you. For this entire time that you've been hooked to it, for this entire time that you've been drinking almost every single day for the last 5 years, it has worked for you. It's worked, and it's helped you through these tough times, maybe some of the toughest times, but it's not working anymore. And so this is where we're at a crossroad, and we got to see what we're going to do. And she actually told me that when I was in outpatient rehab, but I still wasn't sober. I think my first 3 weeks of outpatient rehab, I was still drinking. And then we came up with a plan. And also, to hold myself to it, I started drinking less, which people get on my ass for that. Like, there are ways that you could have done that to be safe. But it wasn't my first time, like, weaning off of alcohol. Because in the past, I've tried to go sober. And so my sick boy method, if you will, Who's seen Train Spotting? Which one to use? My sick boy method was, let's say, my regular go-to was usually, well, towards the end of things, every day I was drinking like, I don't know how many liters this is, but those little bottles of vodka, that's what I was drinking every day. So I went to 2 shots of vodka. And then it went to like 1 shot and 2 beers were my limit for the night. And then it was like, okay, no more vodka. We're all done with vodka. We can do 3 beers tonight. And then it would be like 4 days to a week of 3 beers. And then we went down to 2. And then finally we went down to the Coronitas. And that was kind of how I weaned myself off of it, which I did it. And again, it's probably true. Like, you know, I probably should have been more transparent with my therapist or something. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe that was fine. Because I think I was telling my therapist about all this. And now that I know the dangers of like, weaning off of things without help, like, I've heard some crazy, scary stories in IOP about people who have died because they stopped drinking after drinking for X amount of time. Or people who are turning fucking green and yellow. Which is like the scary side of it all, turning fucking green and yellow because they wanted to stop drinking and just didn't do it the right way. So, whatever. Yeah, I didn't stop drinking until 3 weeks in, and I don't know why I got off on that tangent. I'm gonna be honest with you right now. But, damn, I'm talking a lot about sobriety. I didn't know that I would talk a lot about sobriety, but at the end of the day, it's one of the biggest things on my mind. And so we could go back to talking about this guy and, you know, the way that he described that it's the best thing in the world. And it's been tough. It's been really, really tough life. And lately moving forward, something that I have a lot of, and that's helped me so much on this journey of like healing and sobriety, is having gratitude. But I think I have a really hard time with balance and balancing the fact that like I can have gratitude, but that doesn't mean that everything's perfect. And I can have gratitude, but I can be upset when things go wrong. Or I can have a bad day and just lean into the fact that I can't be positive that day. You know, like I could be thankful that I'm here and for all these things, but I also got to remember that I'm human. I'm not fucking, I don't know, I'm human. So I got to deal with the fact that I can't be happy all the time or whatever. And, yeah, so I don't know, that guy and his video really put a lot of things into perspective for me when it comes to addiction and the fact that there's a reason that we like drugs. There's a reason that we rely on drugs because they feel great. For one reason or another, they're addictive and they're made that way and they feel great in a world where sometimes we're brought here fucking by parents who are traumatized, who just traumatize the shit out of us. Or we grow up and that bad thing that happened when we were a kid just doesn't really go away. And we have to cope with that and live with that somehow. Or, you know, the bad thing that happens when you're a teenager. The bad things that happen when you become an adult. And you still have, you know, learning to do or behaviors to kind of fix. Bad actors to avoid. Because in my older age, I feel like the reason that life is so stable now is because I know the telltale signs of somebody that I should avoid. I know that I deserve better. I know I deserve good things. So why am I going to go and put myself through that bad thing? That that behavior, that cycle of self-sabotage. I don't want to do it anymore. We don't have that. We don't have a frontal lobe when we're teenagers or when we're children. We don't fucking have that. So it's like the guy in the video said, you start to experiment, and that's all fine and well, but one false move and then you find yourself hooked to something for the next how many years of your life. And that kind of sucks. And so I feel isolated. I feel like a prude because a lot of people my age are drinking. I go and I talk about it on Instagram, but I feel like a prude because I know a lot of my friends are drinking. And I don't ever want to make people feel bad or guilty for the fact that they could drink and whatever. But again, the point and the fact of the matter is that one of us is sick and it's not them. It's me. is me. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. My mom tells me a lot that I need to be proud of myself. And so I'm just trying to keep that and remember that while I'm going through this sobriety journey. 4 months in, I'm technically still, I forget the word that my therapist uses. I'm not remembering right now. Not high risk, but I'm still in a certain mode before I can, be I don't know what it's called. So let's go look at these notes real quick and see. I actually touched on a lot of things. Wow. I touched on my struggles with balance. I guess the last thing that we're going to talk about before we wrap this up is mental illness and social media as a comic book artist. Sharp turn, huh? Bet you didn't see that shit coming. I bet you didn't fucking see that coming. Yeah, so I've been crashing out a little bit. I think it happens every time I post a new comic. Who's keeping up with the Mr. Bitches comic? Who's keeping up? I get into these just overall emotions of damn, I'm making art and I ain't never gonna reach a huge audience. But that's okay, And before I talk myself down with that's okay, these are my struggles. These are my feelings. These are my emotions, You have people who have a lot of likes and have a lot of followers and get a lot of attention. I like to think that I'm a very brilliant individual. It's a word that I use a lot in recent times to describe myself in my head because I don't like bragging to other people and whatever, but I feel like I'm kind of fucking brilliant. I feel like I have a very brilliant, bright mind. Going back a little bit, when I got one of the reasons, we're not going to get into why I got sober to the extent, but I hurt somebody. We'll talk about it some other day. I don't want to get deeper than we've already fucking gotten today, but I hurt somebody, and when we were doing that closure talk, she looked at me and she said, I don't meet people often that I'm interested in. You are so smart, and you do your thing with the artworks and the comics, and you were telling me about that crazy incest comic you made when you were in high school, and you were talking about humans and how we cling to each other and do awful things through that during times of trauma and chaos. And through this last week of having this incident with you and the drinking, I just can't help but to feel like it's a waste and that you're wasting all of that with the alcohol. And that was a hard fucking thing to hear, man. That was a hard thing to fucking hear. That somebody who don't like people liked you and saw that brilliance and felt like you were throwing it in the garbage because of this sickness that you have. So it wasn't an easy thing to hear, but it was one of the things that I needed to hear to get sober. And so now on this journey of self-love, because it's been contingent with the sobriety, it's I know that I'm brilliant. I know that I create insane, awesome, crazy fucking things. And what's crazy is I've been doing it for a while now. I've been whacked out. I've been whacked out for a while now. I've been fucking off my rocker for a minute. But I get upset that when you hear it and when I acknowledge it. I'm so brilliant, but it's where are the people? Where are the people to observe this brilliancy? Where is my big break in all of this? I had big dreams when I was a kid of being a comic book artist, and I am a comic book artist. There's just not really these grandiose numbers to follow it. So sometimes I'll post and I'll get insecure and crazy. I was feeling insecure because I posted the comic in my Discord server, and my friends were praising me, but it got so swamped, in this is such a first world thing, and this is going to sound so privileged. It got so swamped that I don't think a lot of people saw that the comic was out, and then it just, got off topic, and then other people started posting artwork, and I was bummed out about that, because I was only one person reacted to it, and I guess the 3 people and the other people, like, read it. We're gonna get to the happiness. Just wait for me. Let me complain. It was like a couple people read it, but it didn't get the usual attention that it gets in the server of like 8 people reacting to it and whatever. I was like bummed. And then I was in the server so much because I love my people there. But then I was like, I'm not doing good in my head. And I'm upset about not getting the attention that I wanted for some reason. And so I deleted my Discord app because I'm crazy and I need to do it sometimes. I also have been really upset because I'm in a comic book class right now, and the people in the server are just like super unresponsive generally, and I don't understand it. But there's this back and forth of like, people join the server. I was like, people join the server to connect and nobody's connecting. No, a lot of people joined the server because they had to, because it was a requirement for the comic book class. So whatever. I posted my like a snippet of my comic there, and it got 1 react. And then I told my friend that I was upset about it, and she was the second react. And she was hyping me up in the comments. And I was like, damn, I don't know anybody in this class who's been farting out fucking comics. I think I farted out a total of 3 since joining the comic book class. 3. I made the fucking at Hoover Dam. I also made the smut for the fucking at Hoover Dam. I also did confronting Mr. House. And then I did que mala pata que eres tú. Okay? Is that 3 or is that 4? Do I know how to count, or have you been counting? I don't know. Somebody fact check it in the comments down below. But either way, I'm like, yo, like, I'm making shit. But y'all only want to react to, like, anime characters. And whatever, that's just my seething jealousy. And I could talk to you about it, and I am talking to you about it. But it's, like, discouraging. It gets discouraging. And so now let's talk about the upside. Because this is how I try to live my life. And as a comic book artist on social media, which is a blessing, objectively, it could also feel like a curse. But I try to look at the blessings of it all. My recent comic, so many people on Instagram gave me so much love. And it got so many comments, it's not even funny, of people praising me for my writing, and my dialogue in writing, for the emotions that it invoked. Like I said, my friends in the Discord were chatting, they were talking, a conversation was started, even though I wanted to be spoiled about it in the end and upset that maybe not everybody saw that the comic was posted, and I need the validation, whatever. Like, at least people were talking about it, and I was starting a conversation, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is connecting with each other and talking to each other. Who gives a fuck about reactions and likes and thousands of likes? No, let's talk about it. Let's fucking talk about this shit. And so I've been feeling discouraged. I deleted my Discord off of my phone. I've been shifty on Instagram, and I'm probably going to delete it soon just so that I can get some stuff done, which is something that I do often. I take breaks pretty fucking often. But a lot of the times, I tell other people this too, because somebody in my comic book class was asking about advice for posting on social media and how it's discouraging. And there's a certain way that I've been coping with putting my whole butthole out on display and making these comics that I'm pouring my soul into. Because if you know me and you know Mr. Bitches, then you know. And I don't have to explain myself further. But it's like a hard thing to do when you create art that comes from some really deep, crazy things. And then to, not have a lot of people see it. Well, how do we cope with that? At least people are fucking seeing it. 90 likes, 98 likes, 48 comments. That's better than fucking nothing. Some people post and don't get anything. Some people don't get any attention or any love. And I get so much. Even if it's just 9, it's 90. It could have been 1. It could have been nothing. It could have been 0. And conversations are started. Not only is it people interacting, but it's people sharing their experiences or sharing their thoughts. And that's something that really gets my rocks off personally, because I love humans and I love communicating with people. And again, connection is something that I crave really deeply. Connecting and attention. Well, that's the problem, is part of the problem. But oftentimes while making this artwork, I go through this. So I go through, every time I post a comic, so I go through this once or twice a month, where it's like, fuck it, I wish I wish people saw my brilliance, and I wish I could get more numbers or get more. How can we get more? How can we get more? Okay, cool. Whatever. I'm upset. I suck. No, you don't. You're fucking brilliant. And it could be 0. And in these moments of discouragement, you just have to dance like nobody's fucking watching. Because you started off at a smaller number, and now you've built it up to this. When I first started making Fallout comics, I didn't have any Fallout friends. I didn't have anybody outside of, like, people who had been following me who might like Fallout. It's like you see Mr. Bitches and this guy in a red beret, and you're like, what the fuck is this, L? I want to see your schizophrenic artwork, or I want to see you throwing that ass back on the gram. No, Doomed Yowie, that's what you get. And originally, I was getting 0, like, really no feedback, no nothing. My followers were like, what's going on? And also, why are you posting so frequently now? So I started off in a sense of 0, of having nobody who was into Fallout, to now having these friends that I've made, and, having a following of people who like this thing and who like these characters. And that's a blessing within itself, because there was a point where I was crashing out. This is getting kind of long. I don't want it to go over an hour. So I'm kind of going to put the brakes a little bit. But I was feeling discouraged that day that I posted the comic, and that was on Monday. And on Monday, we had our comic book class, and somebody asked the guest that we had on, who was a writer, a comic book writer, who's worked in several movies for DC, and they were like, how do you deal with rejection, when it comes to being in this industry? And he said exactly what the fuck I tell myself, but it's different when you hear it from someone else, And he said, you have to do this for yourself. It's going to suck balls to get rejected. It's going to suck so bad. You're going to feel like shit. You're going to feel unworthy. But you have to remember that at the end of the day, if you're not doing this for you, then it really doesn't matter. And you're not going to enjoy it in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's just pointless at that rate. So you have to do it for yourself. And on top of that, like, you just have to get right back up and keep going. And when it was my turn for my question, I thanked him for that, because I said, I've been feeling discouraged, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one who needed to hear that, but I really needed to hear that, and I really needed the reminder tonight, because I can only tell myself so much. There's so much already up here that it's an ongoing battle, and that voice can get clouded in other voices at times. So I'm glad that I heard him say it, and I'm sure I'll feel better after taking my little social media break. Not too long now. People are relying on me to finish a story, and so this has been awesome. I think it went better than I thought. I'm not sure if people will find it interesting or entertaining, but we did a lot today. And so hopefully I have the balls to upload it. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that I talk about is not surprising, or I've talked about it on other social media platforms. And I'm an open book. When I die, I don't want there to be no fucking surprises. If this information is going to sit and help somebody who's, in active addiction, or who wants to quit, or who wants to stop, or somebody who's had a laundry list of, things that they've been addicted to that they didn't even realize until they got older. Things that they experienced that they didn't know was manifesting itself in the form of addiction, or self-injurious behavior, or, engaging with the wrong people and the wrong things. Like, if there's anything that I can do to help, and if that means I have to share my experience, then I'm an open fucking book, baby. I'm willing to do that. And so I guess we'll see what I have. I don't know if I want to do these once a month or twice a month. We'll see. But I'm going to set a reminder in my phone or something and try to remember. So I've been Elle. This has been episode 2 of the LOL podcast. We'll have a couple more of just me before we get that next guest on. So take care of yourselves. Be good. Do good. And I'll see you later. The type that's known to set the tone. Just pass the microphone. I had a whole spot to play to examine. My thought patterns are deep like veins, a tough companion.